Well, good morning. Thanks for having me. I apologize, I sound so nasally. I've got a 6-year-old who just turned 7 on Groundhog Day and a 3-year-old who are both home from school sick. So, um, as any parent knows, once they contaminate the house, everybody else gets contaminated. So, my name is Sara Reyes. I'm originally from Fairbury. I went to SCC Beatrice for a couple years and then transferred to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Got my bachelor's in psychology with an emphasis in my ethnic studies. I was on my way to possibly being a lawyer. After college, I went to Chicago. I was there for about 10 years, worked at a huge law firm, did the corporate thing, did business development. I saw what corporate attorneys were all about, and I figured out that really wasn't my gig. So, I always said that if I ever went into law, it would be for nonprofit or for public sector work, because that's really where my passion is. So, once I started having kids, I kind of just tried to stay at home, and within 8 months, I was back to work. I think I'm a better person and a better parent if I have the work family balance. So when I went back to work, I was very picky about where my time would go, and I ended up working for a small private equity firm, and really that's where my entrepreneurial journey began. So I worked directly with the boss and the attorney, and we just invested and startups or any businesses that really were appealing to him and he could see a future with. So, the first project that I really got involved with was an ethanol plant. It is probably the most successful renewable fuel ethanol plant in the U.S. It's located in Michigan. Right after that, my employer had a vision of having a tomato greenhouse in the state of Illinois that would provide tomatoes year-round. So he was very passionate about the taste of his tomatoes, which I think is so funny. And he would go to restaurants and he would complain, and he's like, I can tell the difference, and he's like, it's not the same. So put a lot of time and effort in researching. He went to Holland, met with people that had already done this in Holland, and seeds were planted, and we basically developed the first year-round tomato plant in the state of Illinois. And actually, I think last year they ended up doubling its size. So the tomatoes, they source a lot of other entities came out of this one project. They started as a fresh food program where they provide fresh meals using the vegetables and meats that are locally sourced, and so that the kids can have actually good, healthy meals to eat instead of processed foods. Another business that actually came out of this was a local food distribution hub. And I'm sharing with this because this kind of leads to where I am today. This local food distribution center basically took produce that farmers would try to sell at local food markets, and we had farmers that would come from 200 miles out to maybe sell their produce at the farmers market that weekend. Sometimes they would walk away with a loss. Sometimes they would have spoiled goods going back. So there was a need there. So we looked at that and we created a hub. We got trucks. We went out and met with these farmers, and the plan just we got investors, and the plan just kind of grew. So out of this local food distribution center, we have a greenhouse, we have a school lunch program, we have a local sourced food market, and now you have 5 or 6 different entities. So out of one idea. So that's really where I got the taste for business, what it was about. I love the being able to problem solve, and I think that as a business owner, that's really who we are. We are problem solvers. You've got to be able to take the good and the bad and the stresses and figure that out and somehow make it work and come up with a solution. So from there, my husband suckered me into working with him and helping him grow his business. So I quit my dream job to go help him. And I remember my boss looking at me. He's like, be very careful, because this could turn out and a very good thing or a very bad thing. And luckily for us, it turned out to be a very good thing. So got his business up and going, and I realized that was his passion, not mine. So I started to back off. Eventually, we decided that we needed to plant roots, and because we're both from Nebraska, we moved back here in June of 2007. So at that point in my life, I realized that I was tired of working for other people, and I needed to work for myself. And so I started looking at industries that I could make a profit or a living off of. One of the things that I looked at was liquor. In my mind, I'm like, doesn't matter what's going on with the economy, people are always drinking, okay? So the more I dived into it and the more I researched it, I just couldn't stand behind the product. It's just, I'm a social drinker. I love to have a cocktail, but I just could not do that for a living. So then I looked at the cosmetic industry, beauty, owning a salon. And as I dived into it, it was just a world that I had no interest in. I'm never going to cut hair. I'm never going to it wasn't my day-to-day. Okay, so then I moved up to my third option. I'm like, well, I've always loved flowers. And one of the things that I always say is if I ever win the lottery, I'm going to have fresh flowers delivered to my house every day. Well, I haven't won the lottery. I do work at a flower shop, and that still doesn't happen. So that's something that I need to work on. But, flowers, it's a billion-dollar industry. Everybody uses flowers at some point in their life, and I started looking at a flower shop in Omaha, and before I could even get my foot in the door, it was sold. And then there was this shop here in Lincoln, and I was like, oh, I don't want to go to Lincoln. I don't want to live in Lincoln, My husband encouraged me to come take a look at it. And it was the right place at the right time with the right numbers. So I've learned that when something's very easy and it falls into place, you take the risk and you go. You take every opportunity and you search it out, and if it works, you stay with it. If it doesn't, then at least you tried, but you don't have any regrets. So that's how Field came into the picture. For me, I used a lot of the knowledge that I learned in Illinois. So my boss was a very smart man. He was self-made. He was working in Chicago, the stock market back in the day when cigars and whiskey was allowed on the floor, and he just made a lot of money, and he used that to help other people. So one of the things that I learned is that, one, everything is negotiable. And at first, I was like, what do you mean? There are some things that are like a hard no. An airline is not going to waive their fee if I change your flight. It's like, I'm getting charged the fee. And he would never take no for an answer. So I had to find a way to solve that problem and come up with a solution that worked for him. And that's kind of how I started to, develop that assertiveness that I think, is important, and just confidence in myself. First thing, everything's negotiable. Second thing is there's always people out there that are willing to help you. So with my business, I never involved a bank. Everything that I've done has been self-funded, or I figured out a way to make that work, meaning some owners are willing to owner finance. So for when you're starting a business, that's something that you've got to look into. If your financial resources are very limited, talk to them. See if they're willing to finance some of the debt or whatever it is that you're taking on. And for me, that was huge, especially because my husband is also a business owner. And when, he's the primary income winner and the banks are loaning him money, they're probably not going to loan me money as well. So, Fields, the owners were great to work with. We hit it off. They owner financed some of the loan. I put some down, and here we are. What I've learned throughout the years in running different businesses is, what you put into it is what you get out. Being a business owner is tough. There's a lot of nights where, you lay awake in bed, whether it's finances or whether it's employees. On the employee side, I've managed a lot of employees, and one of the things that really has stuck with me throughout the years is my manager. I remember walking into my manager's office, and he's like, sit down, and I was like, okay. I'm like, why can't so-and-so just, get it together? I'm like, we're good for a month, and the next week it's the same thing, and I'm like, I just don't understand, and he's like, right. He's like, managing employees is going to be a forever thing. He's like, you have to accept that you're going to have, weeks where are good, months where are good, and then you're back at it. He's like, that's people. You have to learn to accept that. And for whatever reason, the way he said it just kind of clicked for me. And, that's one of the tools that I've applied towards handling employees. And, I guess it's made me more accepting and more understanding and compassionate of, it doesn't matter whether I hire, Sally from the street, I'm still going to have similar issues with her as I did with the previous employee. So the other thing that I've kind of learned to cultivate throughout the years is my passion for marketing. When I ran my husband's dental practice, that was one of the things that really spoke to me, and that's kind of who I am to the core as well, is giving back to the community. So one of the roles was PR relations manager. We participated a lot in the community, got involved with the community, and so much so that we actually ended up winning Business of the Year by the Chamber Chicago. And let me tell you, no dental office will win Business of the Year because patients love going there. So we are the least, liked profession. But if that, that really spoke volumes to my passion and who we are as people, and in every job that I've had, I apply that too. So with Fields, when it comes to marketing, there's different sublets of marketing. There's advertising, which is paid advertising. I give somebody money, and maybe they create an ad for me, and then they publish it, or and there's also PR. So PR, what I like to call is goodwill PR, is kind of where I put my efforts. When I first started Fields, I wasn't too familiar with the Lincoln market, but one thing I do know is that people don't advertise. I did my research. I don't think I've seen another florist really advertise. And so that's kind of where, I put in a lot of effort. I threw my net wide, and, within a year I kind of saw what my ROI, or return on my investment, was. And everything that didn't work, I cut, and what I did work, I kept. So one of the things that works for me is advertising a Strictly Business magazine. I've tried the home mag, I've tried the newspaper, I've tried internet, I've tried a lot of different things, and I can tell you, for me, what brings me the most clients is walk-ins, which is word of mouth, the internet, which is it's Facebook or my website, and then advertising with Strictly Business magazine. And then my favorite, and then my fourth thing, which is my favorite, is goodwill PR. What that means is you align yourself with organizations or causes that are important to you, and you donate your time or you donate your resources. For me, donating flowers is a very enjoyable thing to do, and that's something that I can provide, and I can donate my time by creating these arrangements. So I do a lot of that, and that in itself speaks volumes. And I've had people say, what, I saw that you donated a bouquet to this event, and I thought that was really neat, so I want to come support you. So it all comes back full circle. The only thing I will say, I've seen people who do goodwill PR, but their intentions are not genuine, and people do look through that. So, I support causes that are important to me. I don't always accept every donation request, especially if it's, just somebody random. I always look for the connection. Where are you from? Who invited you? What's your organization about? And, if it's related to my employees or a family member or somebody that I know, then absolutely I will support you in that. So that's worked really, really well for me. And as a business owner, I'm always looking at ways to level up, meaning And maybe that's just how I'm wired. I'm always looking at ways to grow. How can I improve on what I'm doing? And last year I was looking for a second location. I'm like, okay, I got Fields up and going. And when I went in, I changed everything, meaning there were some things that weren't making sense from a business standpoint. For example, Teleflora or 1-800-Flowers. I think you all are familiar with some sort of version of that. That is not a good thing for our industry. They basically own your website. You have to pay them a marketing fee, and they advertise a $29.99 beautiful bouquet that on my end might cost me $50 to create, but then they offer it to you for $29.99. They get 30% right off the bat, and then guess what? At the end of the day, I'm actually owing them money. So for small businesses, these large corporations, they seem great, but they're not what we need, and you're starting to see more and more florists kind of get away from that. So, and as most of you know, you've got to do your research. You got to do your research in your industry. You got to know what's been done, what's happening next. You got to stay on top of it, and you have to create that value added in order for people to come to you. For me, that was knowing the other florists around the city of Lincoln. I think I've toured, easily probably over 100 flower shops in the state of Nebraska. And I'll get to that in a minute, but I know my competition, and really I don't even look at them as competition. My competition is myself, okay? So I'm in business for myself. My competition is myself. I don't do things for other people, meaning like I'm not driven by somebody else's sales or somebody else's motivation. I'm driven by me. So, when I look at the competition, I know who is on top of the wedding game. I know who is on top of the funeral piece. And so I have to figure out how I can differentiate myself from them and own a niche of the market. So for me, weddings, probably not my favorite thing to do. Is that where the money's at? Yes, but there's also other ways to make money. There's corporate accounts, there's funerals, and there's the day-to-day stuff, and that's really what I'm more passionate about. With weddings, people want a $10,000 wedding off of a $500 budget, and at the end of the day, we're in business to make money. We do want to help people, but I also have to be able to pay my utilities, make my payroll, and make sure that I'm able to support myself. So that's kind of my little path of getting to where I'm at with Fields. So as I started my search to look for a second location, I actually looked at one in the Omaha area, and the numbers weren't right, meaning what I came up with wasn't what the owner was willing to agree to, and that was totally fine. I was able to walk away, and that's really probably the defining point for me when I invest in something or when I want to put my time and effort into starting something. I'm a numbers gal, so numbers are very important, and you have to make sure that they make sense, meaning if you have any sort of hesitation, something's not right, doesn't look great on paper, you need to find out what that is, why you feel that way, because there's probably something there. And so, I'm okay with walking away from an opportunity, but at least I saw it out, and I know that I can move on, and I don't have any regrets. Well, another location came up in Lincoln, and after looking at the numbers, I ended up purchasing. So I actually also own Cuts, which is the floral wholesaler here in Lincoln, and it's a completely different end of the spectrum. So I've got Fields, which is the retail end, and then I've got Cuts, which is the wholesale. And with Cuts, we source flowers to all the retail florists, event designers, corporate entities like restaurants, and colleges. Now, I do want to make very clear that with Cuts, it's strictly you get the raw flowers, meaning we don't design them for you. So they're two completely separate businesses and operations. Cuts is very fast-paced. I, source flowers either locally or within the U.S. because that's what really ensures their freshness. And we distributed them out within a 200-mile radius of Lincoln. We go to Kansas, we go to West Nebraska, we go as far east as Iowa, and of course we go north. So never in a million years did I think I would be so immersed in the world of flowers, but I love what I do. I'm constantly looking at ways to level up, meaning how can I improve on what I've already done? How can I make things more efficient? And that's really the bottom line is, as an owner, we wear many hats. We are operations people. Okay, you can't get to where you're going by yourself. You have to have a team. You have to make sure you support that team and give them the power to own their role. One of the things that I tell my staff is that if you're coming to me for the decisions all the time, you're never going to own your hat or the role that you wear. You've got to be able to make a decision for yourself and just keep me informed. And if it's not the right decision, we talk about it, maybe find a different avenue. And if it is the right decision, based on the information that you had, then you need to own that. And that's creating a team that's got skin in the game and have them get invested with you, because you cannot do this alone. Otherwise, you're going to get stressed out. You're going to get overwhelmed. It's just too much for one person to handle. So, on that end, making sure you have a good team, making sure that you focus on what you're good at. So, for me, do I want to be answering the phones for every sale? Absolutely not. Okay, for me, my game is going out there, selling the product, selling me, selling what I'm about, because people are going to want to do business. In my industry, we're about relationships. We're visual and we're relationships builders. Okay, a florist that lives in Henderson, Nebraska, she's going to want to know who Sara is, what Sara's about, what are Sara's intentions, and what's the quality of flowers that Sara's providing. Okay, a phone call is not going to develop that relationship. So when I say that I've traveled, quite a bit of the state looking at flower shops, that's why. And so when it comes to sales, that's a role that we as business owners should assume, because we're our own best advocate. And the other one is you've got to have a pulse on the numbers. You can't be a business owner and not know what's happening with your business. So even if you're not a numbers person, you still have to have some kind of idea of what's happening and kind of understand to some degree. And of course, there's people, accountants and bookkeepers, and that can help you with that. But that's really the bottom line, and just cut waste. I from the floral standpoint, there is a lot of waste. You can order. When I first came in, we were ordering about $500 worth of flowers a week. Okay, that is a lot of flowers. And now we've got it down to $250 a week. And I can tell you, barely have any waste. Everything that we bring in goes out. And that's huge, at least for our industry. So figure that out. Set a budget for your marketing, set a budget for your product, set a budget for traveling, for gas, whatever it is, set a budget. And that's, that's really what keeps me kind of on the path that I need to be on. And even with a budget, there's months where, I struggle. We're seasonal. There's 4 holidays that really make our living. It's Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Beyond that, weddings are a plus. I already told you how I feel about weddings. And then it's just the day-to-day stuff. Thank goodness for funerals. Not that I want people dying, but, that's kind of what we rely on. And just, the special occasions and the walk-ins, and then just repeat customers. So that's really me. That's been my journey. I've done a lot, I think, in my short life, but I love what I do, and I think that anybody that knows me or sees me can really tell that I'm passionate about this. So that's really ultimately find your passion and go with it. You never know where it's going to lead you. So,
any questions?
Yes.
I have a comment.
Okay.
My youngest daughter is very good at when I'm having a day and she can feel I'm struggling, she will stop and get flowers, and it makes a huge difference on the receiving end, knowing that somebody took the time and effort, got the flowers, and it's a great show of love and support. So,
thank you. And that's honestly, that's what I love. That's what makes my heart tick, and that's what keeps me going. I'll share this really quick story because I think it's very valuable, and even when I'm having a rough day, I reflect on this. There was a gentleman that started coming into our shop, and he would always buy white roses. And one time when I waited on him, I jokingly said, I'm like, wow, your significant other is a very lucky person. And he said, well, it's not for my significant other, it's for my son who passed away. And then immediately I felt like such a jerk, right? And so I said, I'm sorry, do you mind telling me what happened, or can I ask you? And his son was killed by a drunk driver, okay? But him coming to the shop and getting flowers, he would get the flowers and put them on his gravesite, and it was something that he did every week. And then fast forward, probably about a year later, I started DIYs, do-it-yourself events at the shop. And our very first one of my gals asked him, hey, hey, Jim, we're having this event, would you like to come? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And honestly, I was so caught off guard because he's a male, and I'm not discriminating, but not very many men want to show their sensitive side and go play with flowers. So he came, and after that, he comes up to me and he's like, I want to thank you for inviting me. I actually had a really good time. And he's like, and there's something else I need to tell you. And I'm like, okay, I hope this is good, because he said, I've moved to Lincoln 3 years ago, and he's like, and nobody has taken the time to really understand what I'm going through. And he's like, coming here every week has helped me grieve for the loss of my son. I cannot tell you how taken back I was by listening to that. And to this day, this gentleman is a repeat customer, and when he comes to our DIYs, now he brings his coworkers, he brings his whole accounting team, because he wants to get in their good graces, and it's stuff like that you can't buy at a store, you can't buy it at a chain, and that's why I do what I do. So it's that's kind of my passion. On the side, I do have hobbies, and in fact, I'm going on a mission trip in March. My husband's a dentist, so we go on a medical dental mission trip once a year. But that's my game. This is what fuels my soul to keep with the stresses and what life has to offer. So I will leave you with this: find your game. For me, it's business. For a baller, it's whatever it is, whether it's football, basketball, or whatever it is. For my husband, it's dentistry. Ask yourself what your game is and go with it.
All right, well, we need to draw for this beautiful flower arrangement.
pick me.
Let me shake it up here. Got pretty good chances today.
Gosh, don't blame me.
If I won, I did.
Joanne Lamb. You'll have to wrap it when you go, because it will freeze.
Okay.
Because it's so cold.
There you go. Nice. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for coming today.